Today you're going to learn how to win at the 2000 ELO level in chess. This is the game I played today. You can see my opponent's rating here, well over 2000. And this game's notable because there weren't any major blunders. It's not like I was gifted a tactic early on in the game. No, I had to outplay my opponent slowly. So think of this as a positional masterclass and how to outplay your opponents who are rated over 2000. My name's Nathan Rose. I'm the author of Chess Opening Names, and I'm also an enthusiastic adult improver. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I do all kinds of tips around how to improve your game. So by subscribing, you won't miss out on any of the great stuff I've got coming up. So I've got the black pieces, and we start off with my favoured opening with black, which is the King's Indian defence against d4. White goes for the Fee and Shadow setup. This is one of the standard ways that white has of meeting the King's Indian defence. We'll run through the opening pretty quickly since this is a class on how to play the middle game more than the opening. But all these moves are standard. What I'm going for here is the e5 pawn break. This is often the plan that black should go for to stake a fair claim in the centre. And there we go, we've got the e5 break in. So white decides to capture on e5, after which I capture back. I was also prepared for the main move, which is d5, asking this knight to move. And in this case, I actually go back. I actually go back to b8. The idea is to reroute this knight all the way over to the c5 square. But that didn't happen in the game. So we get this capture on e5 and bishop g5. And another move that white can play instead of that is to trade queens. Now if white decides to go for this, there's not really much that black can do about it. You just have to play a dry, technical middle game without queens or attacking chances. As much as it pains me to say this, as a King's Indian defence player, you do have to play positions like this at times. But anyway, this didn't happen. Back to the game. After the capture on e5, white didn't trade queens and instead played bishop g5. And my response to that was bishop e6. Now there's a reason behind this, and it comes to the first instructive lesson from this game, which is to win at the 2000 level, you need to know some opening theory. Let's say that instead you played a move such as h6. Very natural looking, right? Just asking the bishop what it's doing, trying to break this pin. But in this case, white can capture, 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 and capture, and then bring the knight to d5. This is the move that bishop e6 is trying to fight against. So this is quite a few moves into the sequence. Right after h6, that's on move 9 for black. And then it's move 10, move 11, and move 12. So that's 3 more moves ahead where the problem of h6 becomes apparent. So this sort of thing has happened to me before. It's through experience that I know the importance of preventing this knight d5 jump from white. So yeah, I think it is important to point out that opening theory has played a part in getting me to the position here after bishop e6. Maybe not the first move that comes to mind, but it's an important move. Now white plays queen a4. And okay, now I am out of opening theory. I don't recognize this move. Maybe I've studied it, but if I did, it was a long time ago. But still, I've got 10 moves into the game and the position is playable. So now I put the question to the bishop, given that I've got this d5 square covered. And okay, white actually responds to the threat with a bigger threat, which is what you can expect at the 2000 level. They don't go passive if they can help it. They want to play as actively as possible. So okay, the queen has to move, so I move to e7, thereby connecting the rooks. So the bishop goes back, and according to the computer, this is a mistake from white. Really, white should have taken on f6. You know, it's hard to see these inaccuracies. It's not entirely clear, but I suppose it's that now this move is a little bit more possible, and white's got control of the d file. So moving back to c1 is just a little bit passive. So then I play rook on f to d8, and this is point number 2 of how to win at the 2000 level. You need to contest the important open lines, in this case the d file. White's got complete control of the d file at the moment, unless I contest it. So I've got to at least grab a share of the d file, so that white doesn't have a free rein along that important line. Now white plays knight d2, and when I first saw this it didn't make sense. I was trying to work out what he was doing. These backward knight moves are always a bit mysterious. But after a little bit of thought I saw, okay, there's a threat here. It didn't come to me straight away. And if you see a move that doesn't make sense to you, it's always important to pause and figure out why they played it. Like maybe they've made a mistake, but maybe, and probably more likely at this level, there is an idea behind it. And the idea actually is to take on c6, thereby winning a pawn. It's actually a little bit double-edged for white to do this. I'm not sure that he would have carried out the threat, because if we look at this line, let's just say I do something random. If he takes, and then queen takes, okay, yeah, it's saying that it is actually better for white. The extra material is worth it, but white does leave himself a little bit weak on the light squares. Whenever you've got a fianchettoed position, that bishop is important to guard the squares around your own king, especially if the opposite bishop, that of your opponent, is still on the board. So white's traded off his light squared bishop, I've still got mine. Could be a problem for white in the future, even though the engine likes it, I'm not so sure. But why give up a pawn if you don't have to? And that's why in this position I played bishop d7. I think this is a great move because it responds to the threat with an annoying threat of my own. If white does nothing, white has to think about this potential attack on the queen. You never like to see your own queen pointing at an enemy bishop this way, with the ability to have some discovery. Maybe there's nothing here, but still white's next move is very natural, just moving away from that hint of a threat. Moves to queen c2. Okay, now the next move is almost automatic at my level. It's the first move that came to mind, and I played it very quickly because it's just how 2000 rated players think. We always want to improve pieces with a threat. So that knight was not doing very much on c6. On d4 it's more active. You know, clearly it's coming in towards white's position on white's half of the board, and you also get this with a threat on the white queen. And white has to go to b1. I could have played bishop f5 here, creating another threat, but white seemed to have quite a simple way of blocking that, just with e4. Maybe it's still good for black to provoke this, because now the knight on d4 has an outpost. But I decided to hold off, and I just blunted the threat that the light squared bishop had against b7. Okay, so the knight is kicked, and actually now I did play bishop f5. So again, there's that principle. You want to respond to threats with bigger threats. My knight's attacked. I'm responding not by moving the knight immediately, but instead by attacking white's queen. So white could have responded to this threat by advancing e4, but white wouldn't want to do that because then this knight is on an outpost. An outpost is when the opposing pawns have moved past any square that could attack it. So because the white e pawn and c pawn have both moved to the 4th rank, this knight can never be attacked by a white pawn. if white had played that. So for that reason, white instead played knight e4, and we had some captures in the center, and queen takes e4. And so now this knight does need to move. And the question is where to move it to. And this brings me to the next instructive lesson on how to win at the 2000 level. When you're forced to retreat, think about the future potential of that piece. So this knight is on an ideal square if it wasn't attacked. I love the knight on d4, but it has to move, so where else could it be useful? From f5, it's not really going anywhere. I mean, maybe it could go to d6 to attack the queen, but then what, right? No, so I was thinking what I'd really want to do with this knight is bring it to eventually g5 or c5. And for this reason, I played knight e6, because that route for the knight seemed to provide better future potential for it. White plays a3. The idea behind this is to push b4, trying to gain some extra space on the queen side. And so I continue with my plan, knight c5. So now the queen's got to move, obviously, it's being attacked. It goes to c2, and now I create a new outpost by playing the move e4. I think this is a very good positional move, because this square is now going to be an outpost for one of my pieces. The knight can hop in here, we'll see that it's about to happen very soon, and it ties white down. Remember how he moved the bishop back from g5 to c1? Well, now this bishop is looking very sad indeed. This e3 pawn is blocking it in, it can't get out, and it also doesn't have much potential going the other way. So it's a move with a couple of points, creating an outpost and also blocking in one of white's pieces. White knows what I want to do. He knows that I want to put the knight on d3, which I do. And then white plays knight f4, fighting against this knight. And now I had to stop and think. Like, I didn't really anticipate this. So I was thinking, well, what's the best way forward here? Is it to take this knight, like initiate the capture? But I thought, here it doesn't feel like I've got very much. These double pawns aren't really that weak. I thought that white was fairly equal here, and I was looking for more. And it does seem strange to trade off this fantastic knight for this horrible bishop, but my thinking here, as I played it, knight takes c1, was that I could create some problems against white's pawns on dark squares. So that could be one idea. Also, this bishop is unopposed now on a very good diagonal. Again, another thing that this e4 move did was it freed the bishop. So now, instead of the pawn being back here on e5, with the pawn on e4, this bishop's got a lot more scope. I wanted to stop b4, which was white's plan. Remember when he played a3, the idea was to play b4. Well, let's just make him work a little bit harder to get that break in. So he goes with a4. His idea is to put all his pawns on light squares. Like, now that I've got a dark squared bishop, he wants to put his pawns on light squares, therefore meaning that those pawns can't be targeted by it. And then queen e5, again improving a piece with a threat. The threat is to take on b2, and the black queen is a bit better placed on e5 than it was on e7. So it's always nice to improve pieces while also giving your opponent something to think about. So my next move was again positionally motivated. This knight on f4 is doing a good job of preventing me from having access to the d3 square. So what did I do? I kicked it away with g5. Some people may be reluctant to play this move because it looks like that white's going to be able to put the knight on h5 and eliminate the dark squared bishop, but I was okay with that. It's always about weighing these positional factors. I wouldn't mind if, let's say I play here, carrying out my plan, and white wants to trade. That's fine, that's fine. The bishop is not actually so important as gaining control of the open d file, which I can do via this plan that I've implemented here. So back to the game. After g5, white went with knight e2, looking to come into d4. But I've got time to play rook d3, invading on the outpost. And after knight d4, I go rook to d8, looking for dominance over the only open file in the position, the d file. This makes it very tough for white to play, and you can see the evaluation is showing it's minus 1.5 in my favor. There hasn't been any material lost by white, but this is all about the positional factors. The outpost, the bishop with scope, the two rooks dominating the d file. It's not easy for white to play this, even though he is equal in material still. Rook to d1, and now I kick the white knight again. You can see this is a bit of a theme, right? To push enemy pieces to worse squares. The knight was very good on f4, but it's not as good on b5. It does still cover a couple of useful squares, but clearly the knight is doing less on b5 than it was on f4. Okay, so now here comes another important positional move. The f5 advance may look aggressive, but there's a couple of things here. For one thing, it's a thematic move in the King's Indian defense, so it's always something that black is thinking of. But more generally than that, even outside of the opening, when you have positional dominance, you can afford to be more aggressive. With dominance over the d file, my king is not in any extra danger by pushing this pawn. So you want to be extra aggressive when you've got a positional advantage. Rook to b1, I didn't understand that move at all, but then again, it's hard for white to come up with a plan, and sometimes when it's hard to come up with a plan, you get these random waiting moves. But I push on from f5 to f4, looking to break open the king side, because actually white's a bit shaky on the king side. The king's all by itself over here. All of white's pieces are over on the queen side. So if I can open lines, for example with pawn takes f4, pawn takes f4, if white were to go for pawn takes f4, well, I think white's king is going to be just in too much danger here. And for that reason, my opponent didn't go for this. Instead, after f4, he captured just once, and then tried to bring the queen to put some pressure on. He's got ideas perhaps of invading this way, so I played the next move with two ideas in mind. f3 stops the queen from getting into my position, and also it creates a threat which white always has to bear in the back of his mind, the idea of bringing the queen around to deliver mate on g2. Remember I said before that in a fianchettoed position, the bishop is often an important guardian of the squares around the king. Well, with that bishop gone from the board, I've got a mating idea now, thanks to the fact that it's gone. So white covers that. He has to be conscious of any tactic involving captures that deflect the queen away from there now, allowing my own queen to sneak in. So queen f5, bringing the queen one move closer to being able to threaten this one. And then bishop d4. Bringing in the final piece of mine which wasn't playing a role, and offering white the chance to make a capture, which, if he went ahead and did it, would favour me. I was expecting and hoping for knight takes d4, in which case I would get a passed pawn to go with all of my other positional advantages, dominance of the d file. This pawn will become very scary very quickly for white. They may also help support a e3 advance. So white's position is now on the brink of collapse if he'd made this capture. So offer your opponent the opportunity to make captures which will benefit you. Instead though, he played rook e to d1. And now we get a tactical finish. Can you see it? Bishop takes f2 check. So before I played this move, I was down to only 3.5 minutes on the clock. But still, I invested one of my minutes to make sure that this worked. And it does. Because after bishop takes f2 check, queen takes f2, that's the easy line to calculate. That is going to actually lead to checkmate. The only way for white to block this check is with the queen. So even if there wasn't a checkmate, white is just losing a decisive amount of material. And king takes f2 also doesn't work, because in that case we've got e3, and then when the king moves back, say to g1, then that's a fork, winning back a lot of material. For that reason, white tried king h1, but then after e3, with the same threat of forking on the e2 square, white resigned. So it took a lot of positional maneuvering to eventually win material, but you could see that towards the end, white's position was becoming untenable, despite the fact that there was no tactic that won anything. And that's what it takes to win at the 2000 level often. They're not just going to leave a piece hanging or allow a simple fork or pin. They're a bit too good for that sort of thing. And I hope that this video has shown some ways that you can outplay your opponents. If you enjoyed this video, please show your appreciation by giving it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this one, and feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. I'm Nathan Rose. Bye for now.